Hi everyone, and welcome to the first in a new series of videos. Hooray! And these videos, ladies and gentlemen, are on the Weimar Republic and Nazi Germany, 1918 to 1939. Now, it's only 21 years. It's your depth study. So you do need a lot of detailed knowledge, and hopefully these videos will give you the knowledge you need to do well in the exam. Now, there are 4 sections to the course. Section 1, Weimar Republic, 1918 to 1929. That was the government of Germany. We'll have a look at that first. Second section, 1919 to 1933, Hitler's rise to power, the rise of Adolf Hitler. Third section, 1933 to 1939, Hitler in charge, Nazi control and Nazi dictatorship. That's the third section. And finally, section 4, 1933 to 39, life in Nazi Germany. What was it like in Nazi Germany for the young people, the women, etc. So they're the 4 sections. Now, the actual exam itself, I'll talk more about the questions as we go through the later videos. But just to give you an overall view, the exam is 80 minutes long. You do 6 questions. Question 1 is an inference. What can you infer from a piece of evidence? Question 2, causation. Explain why something happened. Question 3, now history teachers call it utility. What it means really is how useful are 2 pieces of evidence. Question 4, how do 2 interpretations differ? Question 5, why do 2 interpretations differ? And question 6, how far do you agree with one of the interpretations? They're the questions. Don't worry too much about it yet. We'll look at them as we go through the course. Now, I hope you find it an interesting piece of history. It is actually quite a fascinating time in history. It's also very important. So I hope you find the videos enjoyable, and I hope you also find them quite helpful. Now let's have a look. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. That's a copy of the front page of the Daily Mirror. And if you just look up there, you will see Monday, September the 4th, 1939. The day after World War II had been declared. Now, why am I looking at World War II, 1939? That's right at the end of the course. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to enter the TARDIS and go back in time. 1939, World War II. Let's go back 6 years. January the 30th, 1933. Adolf Hitler became Chancellor or leader of Germany. How did that happen? Because Hitler in charge obviously led to World War II. How did Hitler get into power? 1933. Well, again, back in the TARDIS. And this time we go right the way back to 1918, the end of the First World War. Things happened then which didn't make Hitler's rise inevitable, but played a part in it. So to fully understand Adolf Hitler and World War II, we have to go to the end of World War I. So, let's have a look. November 1918. Put my German helmet on, the Pickle House. Now, these weren't used much after 1916, but it's such a lovely helmet, I thought I'd make some use of it. Towards the end of World War I. The war's coming to an end. The German army is facing defeat. 11th of November at 11 o'clock. The guns fell silent. Many German soldiers simply stood up out of the trenches, saluted, and marched back to Germany. Well, what sort of Germany were they marching back to? That's a very important question. And the answer In one word, mess. Germany was in trouble at the end of the First World War. The British had put a naval blockade in place in the last section of the First World War, and that meant that many German people were virtually starving. The food couldn't get in. Throughout the war, 750,000 Germans died from food shortages. That was a huge impact on Germany. October, just before the end of the war, the German Navy mutinied. They refused to go into their ships and sail out and fight the British Navy. They mutinied at a port called Kiel. They did not want to fight. There was huge unrest in the cities. Many people have actually called it a German Revolution, 1918 to 1919. The German army itself refused to stop rioting in the city of Hanover. There were strikes in Stuttgart, another major German city. There were uprising, riots, strikes in Munich, down in Bavaria, a very important German city. The one in Munich was led by a communist, a man called Kurt Eisner. I'll come back to that idea of communism in a minute. Germany, therefore, was in a mess. There was huge problems and huge unrest. And this is what the soldiers were walking back towards. People wanted change. They just fought a war and lost it for 4 long years. 2 million German soldiers dead. 4 million German soldiers wounded out of a total of 11 million. So that's 55% of the German army were casualties. The debt, their national debt had trebled to 150 billion marks. Germany was in trouble. They wanted change. Now the first thing they did, they said, right, we've been ruled by a king. Their word was Kaiser, Kaiser Wilhelm II. And they made it quite clear that they were fed up with the old system. They did not want to be ruled by a king or a Kaiser anymore. And some of the leading politicians, the leading advisors, went to Kaiser Wilhelm II and said, you have lost their support. You have lost you've lost your authority. As a result, the king, Kaiser Wilhelm, abdicated. That means he gave away the crown. He's saying, I'm not Kaiser anymore. And he actually left the country. He went into exile in the Netherlands, right next to Germany, actually. So, if the king has gone, the Kaiser has gone, what is going to replace him? Well, many people wanted democracy, the idea that people can vote for your leaders rather than be ruled by a monarch, one king or one queen. So, 9th of November, the German government gets a new republic. Come on, get your teeth in. Sorry about that. A new republic led by a man called Friedrich Ebert. E-B-E-R-T. Friedrich Ebert. Now, he was the leader of the SPD, the Social Democratic Party. 9th of November. 10th of November, Ebert, the new leader, agrees with the army. Look, if you support us and help us, then we will keep out the communists. Chance for me to wear my Russian hat. You've got to remember, in 1917, there had been a revolution in Russia, the Communist Revolution. The Communist Party had taken over in Russia. Well, that had huge implications for the rest of Europe. Some people looked at Russia and said, right, that's what we want. We need a communist revolution here, for example, in Germany. Other people said, no, that's the last thing we want. We don't want a communist revolution in Germany. So Ebert is saying, look at Germany. We don't want that. German army, work with us and we will set up a moderate government because of the fear of the communists. So, 10th of November, Eber's in charge, this new government, and they say, right, we need proper new elections. Democracy, the people will vote and decide and choose. And they say, right, they will be held for our new Constituent Assembly in January 1919. So they are planning this change from a monarchy ruled by the Kaiser to a democracy ruled by elections and the people. 11th of November, a key date. Remember, that's the date when the German soldiers ended the war and many of them walked home to Germany. 11 o'clock, the guns fell silent. The treaty was signed, the armistice ending the war. Now, Eber sent one of his colleagues, a man called Erzberger, 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 and he signed the armistice saying Germany is surrendering. They signed it in a train carriage in France. World War I was over. That would be very, very important later on. And I'll come to that in some later videos. The war was over. What future now for Germany? Well, in a hospital, Payswalk Hospital, P-A-S-E-W-A-L-K, Payswalk Hospital, a German soldier is lying in his bed, temporarily blinded at a battle just by Ypres, blinded by gas. He hears news of this surrender and he is outraged. He is disgusted. He punched the pillow on his hospital bed, burst into tears, and he vowed revenge. And that German soldier was, of course, Adolf Hitler. Within a few weeks, Hitler had recovered and he too went to Munich. What would he find in Munich? What would be happening? Well, we've seen here, Germany was in a mess. We see it's got a new leader, Eber. What can Eber do? How can he help Germany recover? Well, the first thing he had to do was hold the elections, January 1919. What were the results of those elections? What would it lead to for Germany? That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we'll look at in video number 2. So what we've seen here today, the legacy of World War I. Germany had problems. The Kaiser has gone. Can this new government deal with Germany's problems? That's the question. Hope it set the scene well for you. Hope it's encouraged you to have a look at some of the other videos. All the best now. I'll speak to you soon. Bye now.